He fixed her ship in silence. Not knowing the alien princess was choosing her life-mate, he worked in silence most days. The human mechanic lived on the edge of a forgotten space lane, inside a small repair dock that most pilots ignored. His station was old, patched together with scrap metal and faded lights, but it still worked. He did not talk much. He did not ask questions. He fixed ships, took payment, and moved on. People said he was strange. Some said he was broken inside. Others said he just liked machines more than words. The truth was simple. He believed actions mattered more than talking. That quiet routine changed the day the damaged ship arrived. The alarm light blinked red as a sleek alien vessel drifted into the dock, sparks trailing behind it. The design was unlike anything he had seen before. Smooth curves, living metal, symbols carved deep into the hull. This was not a trader ship. It was advanced, powerful. Royal, even if he did not know it yet. Armed guards stepped out first, tall, blue-skinned, alert. They scanned the area as if expecting danger. Then slowly she emerged. The mechanic looked up for just a second. She was unlike any alien he had seen. Her eyes were bright like distant stars. Her movements were calm, controlled, and graceful despite the injury on her arm. She wore simple clothing, but it did not hide her presence. There was weight to her steps, authority, quiet strength. She introduced herself with a false name. Her voice was soft but steady. "We need repairs," she said. Discreetly, he nodded once. "No questions," he replied. His voice was low and calm. That single sentence surprised her. Most beings asked for payment, for identity, for power. He asked for nothing. He simply walked toward the ship, rolled up his sleeves, and began working. From that moment she watched him. The damage was severe. Power lines burned. The core cracked. The navigation system nearly destroyed. Any normal mechanic would have refused the job or demanded triple payment. He did neither. He worked long hours without complaint. When his hands bled, he wrapped them and continued. When the guards watched him closely, he ignored them. When the princess, though she did not use that title, stood nearby, he treated her like any other client. No staring, no flirting, no fear, just respect. He spoke only when needed. "This part is unstable. Power will return in 6 hours. You should rest." Those words meant more to her than he knew. In her culture, silence was sacred. Words were easy to fake. Actions revealed the soul. As he repaired the ship, she learned things about him without asking. He fixed mistakes he was not paid for. He shielded the ship when a solar storm hit, even though it meant risking his own station. He refused extra credits from her guards. "I charged what the work was worth," he said simply. That answer shook her. Among her people, a life-mate was not chosen by beauty or rank. A life-mate was revealed through deeds, through sacrifice, through quiet strength, through protection given without demand. Each hour he worked, each silent choice he made was an ancient sign. She began the ritual without him knowing. At night, while he slept in the corner of the dock, she placed her hand against the repaired hull and whispered the words of marking. The ship accepted it. The bond began. Her guards noticed first. They exchanged worried glances. This was not a simple repair anymore. If the ritual completed, the choice would be permanent. The princess of their empire would be bound to a human mechanic who did not even know her name. They tried to stop her. "He is unaware," one guard warned softly. "That is why he is worthy," she answered. The final test came on the 3rd day. A group of raiders detected the royal ship's signal and attacked the station. Alarms screamed. Blaster fire echoed through the metal halls. The guards prepared for battle. The mechanic did not run. He sealed the dock doors. He rerouted power. He stood between the attackers and the damaged ship, holding only a welding torch and a heavy tool. "Get behind me," he told her without turning. In that moment, the choice was sealed. He did not know who she was. He did not know what she represented. He only knew someone was in danger and he would not step aside. The guards fought back, driving the raiders away. Smoke filled the station. Parts of the dock burned. The mechanic collapsed to his knees, exhausted but alive. The ship powered up behind him, stronger than before. When he finally looked back at her, she knelt. An alien princess knelt before a human mechanic in a broken dock at the edge of space. He froze. "Please don't," he said quickly, uncomfortable. "You're hurt." She smiled softly. "You have chosen," she said. He shook his head. "I didn't choose anything, I just did my job." Her eyes shimmered. "That is why you were chosen." The guards lowered their weapons in silence. The mechanic stood there, confused, tired, and unaware that his quiet life had ended. Outside the station, royal signals began to spread across the stars. The ship was fixed. The bond was formed. And the galaxy had just shifted, because a silent human chose to act when words were not in. The mechanic did not understand what was happening. He stood frozen as the alien woman remained on one knee before him. The station was quiet except for the soft hum of restored power. Smoke still lingered in the air. His hands were shaking, not from fear but from confusion. "Please stand up," he said again. "You don't need to do this." She slowly rose, studying his face. There was no pride in her eyes, no command, only certainty. "You protected me without knowing who I was," she said gently. "You repaired what others would have abandoned. You asked for nothing. In my people's way, that is the highest vow." The guards stepped forward, forming a respectful distance. Their posture had changed. They no longer watched him like a threat. They watched him like a future. The mechanic wiped grease from his hands. "I'm just a repairman," he said. "I didn't mean anything special." "That is not true," she replied. "You meant everything." She finally revealed her name. It was long and musical, filled with sounds that carried history. Then she revealed her title, Princess. The word hit him harder than any blaster shot. He took a step back. "No, that's not possible. You said you were just passing through." "I had to," she said. "Enemies were hunting me. If they knew who I was, they would have destroyed this place to reach me." He looked around his small station, the old walls, the worn tools. The life he had built piece by piece. "I can't be part of royal business," he said. "I don't belong in that world." "You belong where your heart already stands," she answered. Soon, a royal escort arrived. Massive ships filled the space around the station. Lights shimmered like stars coming too close. Messages poured in, orders, demands, warnings. The mechanic felt trapped. He was invited, politely but firmly, to travel with them to her home world, not as a prisoner, as a guest. He agreed only because he wanted answers. The journey was silent. He sat alone in a wide chamber, staring at stars through clear walls. He had never left the outer lanes before. He had never imagined seeing royal space. When they arrived, the planet was alive with color. Towering structures grew like crystal trees. The air glowed softly. Crowds gathered, whispering as he stepped out beside her. Some stared with curiosity, others with disbelief. A human. In the royal court, the elders waited. Powerful beings, ancient and proud. They questioned him without kindness. Why should our princess bind herself to a lesser species? What can a silent mechanic offer an empire? He did not bow. He did not argue. "I never asked for this," he said honestly. "I don't want power. I don't want your throne. I only fix what is broken." Murmurs filled the chamber. The princess stepped forward. Her voice was calm but strong. "That is why he is worthy," she said. "He fixes without ruling. He protects without owning. He gives without demanding." The elders tested him. They offered him wealth. He refused. They offered him command. He refused. They asked him to swear loyalty above all else. He shook his head. "I won't abandon who I am," he said. "If that means I leave, then I leave." Silence followed. Then one elder smiled. "He speaks truth without fear." The choice was accepted. Still, the mechanic struggled. At night, he walked alone, unsure if he could ever fit into this life. The princess found him often, not to convince him, but to listen. "You can return home," she told him. "The bond does not force your steps." He looked at her. "And you?" "I chose freely," she said. "I will accept freely." That honesty changed something inside him. He realized this was not about crowns or customs. It was about two beings who understood the same truth, that strength did not need noise. When danger came again, it was not as raiders but as politics. A rival house challenged her choice, sending threats and pressure. The mechanic stood beside her, not as a symbol but as support. He spoke once before the court. "I won't pretend to be royal," he said. "But I will stand with her, not because of law, because it's right." That was enough. The bond was sealed publicly, not as a conquest, but as a promise. No kneeling, no chains, only shared silence and joined hands. Later, back at the edge of space, a new station was built. One that welcomed all species. One where broken things found care. The mechanic still worked in silence. The princess worked beside him. And across the galaxy, stories spread, not of power, but of a quiet human who fixed a ship, and in doing so, changed the fate of two worlds. The galaxy did not forgive easily. The human mechanic had believed his life could remain quiet, even after the princess revealed her true identity. He had been ready to return to his station at the edge of space, to work on ships and live without questions. But the universe had other plans. Word of the princess's choice spread quickly. Across star systems, whispers traveled faster than ships. A human, a simple mechanic, had been chosen as lifemate by the most powerful alien royal alive. Some celebrated quietly, but many others were not pleased. Political factions saw an opportunity. Others saw a scandal. The mechanic was unaware of the magnitude of his new role. He continued his work, fixing broken engines, repairing damaged hulls, and maintaining old systems at the Royal Space Docks. To him, nothing had changed. He focused on the machines as always. But everywhere he went, people looked at him differently now. Some with respect, others with doubt, suspicion, or even resentment. He did not understand these reactions. He thought his actions had always been simple, helping where he could. But now those same actions were weighed against politics, traditions, and expectations he had never learned. The princess, however, understood. She did not rush him. She walked beside him, silent most of the time, only speaking when necessary. She never demanded he conform to royal expectations. Instead, she allowed him to see the world through his own eyes. She understood that trust and respect could not be forced. It had to grow naturally. Yet, challenges appeared quickly. A rival faction within her empire openly questioned the bond. They summoned him to a grand hall, a massive chamber lined with shimmering crystal pillars. The ceiling reflected light like distant galaxies. Dozens of officials sat on high platforms, their expressions cold and skeptical. "You are a human," one elder began. His voice boomed through the hall. "Your species is fragile, inexperienced, and untested. How do you intend to serve an empire you do not understand?" The mechanic looked at the floor, then at the elder. He felt the weight of every eye upon him, yet he did not panic. "I do not serve the empire," he said slowly. "I serve her. She trusted me. I will protect her. I will not act against what is right." Murmurs ran through the hall. Some laughed softly, others whispered among themselves. But the princess stood tall beside him. Her hand brushed his lightly, a silent gesture of support. "That is enough," she said. Her voice was steady and carried authority that no rank alone could command. "He has proven his worth through action, not words. He has chosen to be here, freely and without desire for power. That alone is a sign of loyalty far greater than any oath forced under duress." The elders were silent. They had seen many allies, many soldiers, and many humans in the past. But this human was different. He had not bowed. He had not promised gold, titles, or obedience. He had acted purely, simply, and with integrity. One elder, the oldest and most respected, leaned forward. "Actions alone are not enough in times of war or crisis. Can he survive in the field? Can he command respect among soldiers and pilots? Can he protect the princess under threat?" The mechanic met the elder's gaze. "I do not need to command respect. I only need to act." When danger comes, I will act to protect her. That is all I promise. The rest is not mine to control." For a moment, silence filled the hall. The words were simple, almost naive, but there was a weight in them that no one could deny. Outside the chambers, the galaxy moved quickly. Reports of unrest reached the royal family. Pirates, mercenaries, and rival kingdoms saw the princess's choice as weakness. Some fleets began mobilizing. Others sent messages of alliance, cautiously hopeful. Back at the dock, the mechanic and the princess worked side by side. Ships arrived daily for repairs, and he handled each one with the same quiet skill he had always shown. No conversation was wasted. No actions were forced. Slowly, those who came into contact with him began to respect him, not for titles but for his unwavering integrity. One day, a damaged fleet cruiser arrived. Its engines were on the verge of total failure. The captain of the ship, a seasoned pilot, had been tasked with escorting a diplomatic envoy. If the cruiser failed mid-journey, it could spark conflict. The mechanic examined the ship. Wires had been severed in a careless attack. Panels were scorched. Systems were misaligned. Any wrong step could trigger an explosion. He worked in silence. Hours passed. Sparks flew, alarms beeped. Sweat streaked across his face. The princess remained close, handing him tools when needed, adjusting small panels herself, silently showing trust. Finally, the ship hummed with life. The engines roared, every system checked out. The captain, exhausted and anxious, stepped out and shook the mechanic's hand. You fixed what no one else could," the captain said. "I don't know how, but you saved our mission and possibly a war." The mechanic nodded, brushing dirt from his clothes. "I do my work, that's all I know." The captain's eyes widened. "That is remarkable, rare, heroic even." The princess smiled quietly. She did not need to speak. He understood in a small way the impact of his actions. Days passed, and danger arrived in a more personal form. A rival noble attempted an attack during a ceremonial event. Soldiers moved to defend the princess, but the mechanic did not wait. He rushed forward, shielding her with his own body. Blasters and energy beams hit the ground around him, but he did not falter. The princess looked at him in surprise. "You could have stayed safe," she whispered as they moved behind a barricade. "I am not safe if you are in danger," he said. "I cannot run from what is right." Her eyes softened. Finally, she realized the depth of his courage, not the grand, visible heroics she had been trained to expect, but the quiet, unwavering bravery that defined him. After the attack, the court recognized him publicly, not as a mere human, but as a partner who had proven loyalty, courage, and wisdom beyond rank or title. Political resistance softened, as whispers of his deeds spread faster than any order. But for the mechanic, recognition meant little. He returned to work, quietly repairing ships, maintaining docks, and helping those in need. His life had changed, yet he remained the same in the things that mattered: honesty, integrity, and action without expectation. The princess often observed him in silence, understanding that true partnership did not rely on ceremony or titles. She did not demand his loyalty, she offered hers freely. Slowly, he began to accept it. Slowly, he began to see the universe not as a series of obstacles, but as a place where quiet courage could shift entire worlds. Together, they faced further challenges. Diplomats tried to manipulate the princess, fleets threatened territories, and spies plotted betrayal. Each time, the mechanic's calm judgment and steadfast actions helped prevent disaster. Each time, his reputation grew, not as a hero who sought glory, but as a man whose deeds spoke louder than words. One evening, after weeks of work and tension, the princess led him to a quiet balcony overlooking the city of crystal towers. The twin moons reflected on the shimmering surfaces. The hum of the repaired fleet ships filled the background, soft and steady. "You've changed everything," she said softly. "I didn't mean to," he replied. "No," she said, shaking her head. "You only lived as you always have. That is why it matters." Not for the empire, not for titles, not for recognition, but for yourself, and for the people you touch without even trying. He looked at the stars. He thought of his quiet dock at the edge of space, the simple life he had left behind. And yet he felt something new, a sense of purpose, not forced upon him but chosen freely in small, silent ways. She took his hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried more meaning than any ceremony or proclamation. Together they watched the moons rise, realizing that the galaxy could be harsh, unpredictable, and dangerous. But with trust, integrity, and courage, even the smallest actions could create change. The mechanic realized that his life would never return to its old quiet routine, but that was no longer frightening. He had discovered a new kind of life, one built on partnership, respect, and quiet heroism. He was no longer just a repairman at the edge of space. He was someone who could face the galaxy, not with grand speeches, but with steady hands, calm judgment, and a heart that acted without thought of reward. And so, at the edge of two worlds, a human mechanic and an alien princess stood side by side, not as ruler and subject, not as superior and inferior, but as equals, united through action, courage, and the quiet strength that can change everything. The galaxy would notice them, but it would never fully understand, and that was exactly as it should be. Because true courage is often silent, and the mechanic had proven that in every spark, every repaired wire, and every step he took to protect what mattered most. If you like, I can now write part 4 to conclude the story fully. With emotional closure, alliances, and a life at the royal station had settled into a rhythm, but it was not quiet. The galaxy was always moving, always shifting, always testing those who dared to stand in its path. The human mechanic had learned this quickly. He no longer expected peace. Instead, he embraced the work, the challenges, and the small victories that came from repairing ships, protecting travelers, and keeping the princess safe. The princess had become his constant companion, but their relationship was quiet, built on respect rather than grand gestures. She never demanded his presence. She never demanded loyalty. She simply existed beside him, sharing the burden of responsibility and sometimes simply sharing a silent glance that said more than words ever could. One morning, a message arrived from a distant system. The content was simple but urgent. A neighboring kingdom threatened war. Their fleets had gathered near a strategic trade route, and they demanded the princess return to her home planet immediately to negotiate or face conflict. The royal advisors were in panic. Protocols, treaties, and centuries-old rules filled the communication, but none of it mattered to the mechanic. He read the message quietly, then looked up at the princess. "They want you to go back and negotiate," he said simply. She nodded. "Yes. But if I go, they may try to trap me. This could start a war." The mechanic did not hesitate. "Then we go together. I'll help you safely no matter what." Her eyes softened just slightly. "Are you sure? You are not trained for diplomacy or politics." "I don't need training," he said. "I only need to act where it is right. I can protect you and the crew, and I can fix whatever breaks along the way." The decision was made. Their fleet prepared to depart. Ships gleamed under the twin suns of the station, their engines humming like a chorus. The mechanic moved among them, checking engines, inspecting hulls, adjusting power conduits. Every detail mattered. Every action mattered. He worked quietly, deliberately, as he always had. The journey was tense. Along the way, the fleet encountered pirate attacks, natural cosmic storms, and unexpected mechanical failures. The mechanic was in his element. He moved from ship to ship, repairing engines, stabilizing power cores, and rerouting damaged circuits. His hands worked quickly, calmly, as if the chaos of the galaxy could not touch him. The princess observed him silently. She had traveled with countless advisors, generals, and warriors, but none had the same quiet authority he carried. He did not command out of fear or pride. He commanded through action, through calm judgment, through simple integrity. During one particularly dangerous encounter, their lead ship was hit by a hidden mine in an asteroid field. Energy shields failed. The ship began to drift toward a dense cluster of rocks. The mechanic jumped into action. He ran along the narrow corridors, rerouting damaged power lines, repairing broken engines, and manually adjusting navigation systems. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the air. Each step was calculated, each move precise. Finally, with a loud hiss and a surge of energy, the ship stabilized. The fleet's commander, a seasoned pilot with decades of experience, approached him with awe. "You saved us all," the commander said. "I don't know how you did it so fast." "I just did what needed to be done," the mechanic replied simply, brushing soot from his arms. The princess watched from a secure observation deck. She smiled faintly. Every action he took, every calm decision, reinforced what she had already known. He was worthy. Not because of his species, not because of skill alone, but because of the integrity in every choice he made. When they finally arrived at the neighboring kingdom, diplomacy began. The palace was enormous, towering over the city like a mountain of glass and steel. Courtiers whispered and guards watched closely. The princess stepped forward, her human companion quietly beside her. Negotiations were tense. The rival rulers demanded concessions, loyalty, and promises that the princess could not easily give. Arguments stretched for hours. Some officials grew frustrated with her quiet human companion, expecting him to stay silent or remain useless. But he did not stay silent. He spoke only when necessary, but his words carried weight. Simple, honest, and direct. "They threaten war over a misunderstanding," he said quietly. "Your fleets have strength, but no plan guarantees safety. Let us find a solution that protects both sides instead of destroying them." Murmurs spread through the room. The rival rulers looked at him, surprised. No human had ever spoken with such calm reasoning, with such focus on what was right instead of what was expected. The princess nodded. "He speaks the truth," she said. "We do not seek war, we seek understanding." Slowly, the negotiations shifted. What could have been a conflict became an opportunity for compromise. Territories were redefined, trade routes protected, and the fleets returned home without a single shot fired. The mechanic had never imagined diplomacy would be part of his life. Yet through simple integrity and calm action, he had prevented war. When the princess's court celebrated their victory, she led him to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons shone above, reflecting off crystal towers. The night air was cool and calm. "You have done more than I ever expected," she said softly. "I just did what was needed," he replied. "I don't need thanks." "Perhaps not," she said, taking his hand. "But the galaxy will remember, and so will I." For the first time, he allowed himself to relax. The weight of responsibility, the pressure of royal expectations, and the constant danger all seemed lighter when she was beside him. They did not need grand declarations. They did not need ceremonies. They simply needed trust, respect, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. Days passed and their partnership grew stronger. He repaired fleets. She navigated politics. Together, they built a small council to address problems across the empire, problems of infrastructure, trade, and security. Their work was practical, grounded, and effective. Even the palace staff began to respect him. The chef, initially wary of a human in the royal halls, came to seek his advice on machinery. The captain of the guard, once skeptical, now requested his counsel on strategic planning. He remained quiet in most situations, but when he spoke, everyone listened. The princess never demanded that he conform to royal expectations. Instead, she adapted, learning from him the value of simplicity, honesty, and silent courage. In turn, he began to understand the complexities of her world, its politics, its customs, and its pressures. One evening, after a long day of repairs and planning, the princess and the mechanic walked along the palace gardens. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly, illuminating their path. You could have chosen to leave, she said. I could have, he admitted. But I stayed because it was right and because I want to. She looked at him, eyes shining. Then the galaxy is lucky, and I am lucky, not because you are human, not because you are skilled, but because you are who you are, and who you are is enough. He smiled faintly, unaccustomed to praise but appreciating it nonetheless. I just fix things, ships, engines, sometimes problems between people, that's all I know. But that is enough, she said, enough to change worlds. They stood in silence, watching the moon's rise. For a human who had lived at the edge of space, repairing ships alone, the universe had become much larger and much more meaningful. In the following months, their partnership became legendary, not for titles or power but for results. Systems once unstable flourished. Trade routes once dangerous became secure. Conflicts were resolved without bloodshed. The human mechanic remained humble, quiet, and focused on his work, but the princess made sure that his actions were recognized where it mattered. Across the empire, stories spread of a human who fixed ships, prevented war, and stood beside the most powerful royal alive, all without seeking reward, recognition, or title. The galaxy watched with fascination. Some doubted, some envied, some respected. But the mechanic did not care. He never had. He worked because it was right. He acted because it was needed. And he loved quietly because it was his choice. Eventually, he returned to his station at the edge of space, not the same station he had left, but one built stronger, safer, and welcoming to all travelers. The princess often visited, traveling between worlds, but always returning to stand beside him. They did not need ceremonies or speeches. They did not need approval or applause. Their bond was simple, practical, and enduring. Built on actions, integrity, and trust, it was stronger than any title or law. One day, as they watched a new fleet leave the dock, fully repaired and ready for exploration, the mechanic spoke softly. I never imagined this life, he said. Neither did I, she replied. But here we are, and it is enough. He nodded, looking at the stars. Each spark, each repaired ship, each quiet choice had led to this. The galaxy would continue to move, challenges would continue to come, but they were ready. Not because of power, not because of titles, but because they acted together quietly, with courage and without expectation. And so, at the edge of two worlds, a human mechanic and an alien princess continued their journey, not as rulers and subjects, not as hero and follower, but as equals, partners, lifemates, and a quiet force that proved one simple truth. The universe changes not only through grand gestures but through small acts of courage, integrity, and heart. The galaxy might never fully understand, but that did not matter, because they understood each other, and for them, that was enough. And in the quiet hum of the station, among the repaired ships and glowing lights, a human mechanic and an alien princess stood together. Their story would be remembered, not for power or titles or wars, but for quiet courage, steady hands, and hearts willing to act when it mattered most.